Well, if I might, John, I've been telling people why they should elect me for a long time, and I've done it in this campaign consistently. I believe this election is about Florida's future, about our children, about making Florida a better place for them, about getting jobs here, which is what I started off my opening comments about. Rick, you're being disingenuous. You're trying to mask the truth that you now trying to deflect from all the problems you've had at Columbia HCA, the problems you now have at Atlantic that you're not willing to talk about tonight. You've diverted away from it. You've pivoted nicely, but the truth is you're under attack currently. I've been surging in the polls. There's a poll this morning that shows we've come back considerably. We're almost there, dead even with you, according to that poll. We know that newspapers like the Tampa Tribune and the Miami Herald and now the Naples paper have endorsed me. To my knowledge, none have endorsed you. There's a reason why that Jeb Bush and Newt Gingrich and Dick Armey and Mitt Romney and these newspapers and the Florida Chamber of Commerce, the Florida Retail Federation, the Home Builders Association, the doctors, the Florida Medical Association have endorsed me and not endorsed you. They know about me. They trust me. I have a proven record that you can go and examine. Your only record is what you tell in your slick ads and you're telling tonight, and your business record, which is not a very good business record. Not a good one at all. It's fraud.
Mr. Scott?
Well, look, I know we're way ahead in the polls, but I know what's important to people. What is important is who is going to create jobs. My background, I mean, look, if you listen, my opponent is clearly the Tallahassee insider, the Washington insider. So I'm not. I'm a conservative outsider, but I know how to build private sector jobs. I know how to start companies. I know how this state needs to grow, and that's what I'll do.
All right, Mr. Scott, Mr. McCollum, let me go in a different direction. With Mr. McCollum, with more than 2 decades in political life in Washington and Tallahassee, you've got the experience, but you also have some questions hanging over you with the investigation of the Republican Party leadership that got themselves in a lot of trouble. And I know you're investigating them, I know that, but specifically in the case of Jim Greer, the former state party chairman, who's going on trial in October for misconduct and fraud. He says that you reneged on a deal you made with him for severance pay. There was also talk of hush money that was suggested to keep this scandal quiet until it got out into the public, and that's what your critics say is when you then launched that investigation. So the question is, why did you wait so long?
Well, I didn't wait long to launch an investigation, John. As soon as we learned that there was an evidentiary trail that might be criminal in nature, I asked the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to investigate. I don't investigate. I just referred it over there. The party itself has had its problems, and we have new leadership now in John Thrasher, and I'm sure that the statewide prosecutor, who is a part of my office but makes independent prosecutorial decisions after Jim Greer was indicted by the grand jury that he convened, is going to handle that case appropriately. I can't comment on the details of it, don't know how it's going to come out, but what I do know is that Senator John Thrasher, who was elected to be the party chairman, is carrying the party generally in the right direction. We need to have confidence in government. We need to have confidence in our parties, and I'm proud of the team that's there now, and disappointed, of course, that Mr. Greer had all the complications that he had when he was there. By the way, I have had no role to play whatsoever in whatever conversations that people may have had leading up to the time that he
Did he come to you and ask you for a...
No, he did not.
Okay. All right, Mr. Scott, you want to comment on this?
Well, it's disappointing because what happened is, my opponent said we don't need transparency with regard to the party issues. So what we do need is transparency with regard to party issues. We need to know all the facts. They should have come out early. It's ridiculous that it's taken this long. It's ridiculous that the investigation, took this long to get started, and it doesn't make any sense. And it's ridiculous that, it's being handled by somebody that, that will, potentially call their boss, my opponent, as a witness. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, let me respond, because Rick, I know you don't know how our laws work in Florida very well, but the statewide prosecutor is a constitutional officer. It's in the state constitution. He makes the prosecutorial decisions. I do not. I've nominated him. He gets nominated by a nominating commission, the Supreme Court nominating commission, with 3 people. I pick one of those 3 people, and then he operates independently. So I have every confidence in Bill Shepard, a great fellow, but he makes all those decisions on his own the way he should be. I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of what we've done fighting Medicaid fraud. While we've been doing those kinds of things, going after criminals, going after the bad guys, recording record recoveries for Medicaid fraud, you and your companies have been committing that fraud.
All right, let me you feel the need to respond to that? I mean, you've responded to it a couple of times. Let's just hold it, and I've got a question on that too coming up later. But let me ask this of Mr. McCollum. A lot of your campaign money is from some special interest groups, from businesses, Florida Progress, and insurance. And I'm curious how you accept. Any politician has this problem. How do you accept donations and gifts from all of these special interests that will be supporting you and that will be trying to defeat or support legislation that will affect the way they do business in Florida? How do you separate yourself from the obligations that you've committed to in some way, indirect or not, to your donors?
Well, you know, that's a flaw, I guess, or a reality of all of campaign finance and all of campaigning in this country when you take donations from anybody. But I have a record, and that's part of my record too, that I have never, ever been swayed by somebody who's contributing to my campaigns. I've often had competing interests do that at one time. I've not denied those donations because that's the only way you can campaign, unless you happen to be extremely wealthy, as Rick Scott happens to be, and you can run on your own money like this. I think it's obscene what he's running on. $40, $50 million trying to buy the governor's office. I don't think the governor's office in Florida should be for sale. I think people of integrity need to be there. You know, if I had done things underhanded or done the kind of things that are implied by perhaps the implications of those who might question your question, John, or what Rick is saying tonight, why would I be supported today by Jeb Bush? Why would I be supported today by Mitt Romney? Why would I be endorsed today by all the people like I've told you that have endorsed me, including the congressional delegation, the legislative leadership in Florida, the Florida Chamber of Commerce? Think about that for a minute. Rick says he's running as a businessman to turn our state around and run it. And yes, I've criticized his record for a reason, because I think there is real fraud there and has been real fraud there. And even if he didn't commit it, he did a very poor job of running a business. And that's why the business leadership of this state overwhelmingly has supported me, why the key elected leaders are supporting me to this day, and why I don't believe at the end of the day the voters of Florida are going to vote for Mr. Scott. I think they'll vote for me.
All right, Mr. Scott, what about that?
Well, what you do know is that no one will own me. I mean, I've put up my money because I believe in this state. I've put up more money than probably anybody in history has put up to try to turn the state around. So nobody, no special interest will ever be able to persuade me to do something, because nobody could clearly put up as much money as I put up to try to turn the state around. I think that it's ridiculous that my opponent took taxpayer money, but I can tell you what, I will do everything I can, and I will continue to do what I've done, is to focus on how we're going to grow jobs in the state, because I started in public housing, and I've lived the American dream, and I want that dream for everybody in Florida.
Well, can I just respond one thing? And I just want to make this one point, Rick.
30 seconds.
If I may have taken a little matching funds, that's all I've taken, the $250 match when somebody gives $250 to the campaign, they're individuals, that's what the state law allows. You took $300 million from the taxpayers. $300 million that you walked away with when you walked away from Columbia HCA that was really taxpayer money. Why don't you give that back? And also, not only did you take that money away, but think of the billions of dollars in fraud, the billions of dollars that were robbed from the people who are the seniors, the Medicare fraud, all of those, the Medicare fund, the taxpayers, while you were at Columbia HCA. That,
let me interrupt you.
That doesn't even compare to a little bit of taxpayer money.
Let's all remember, you took $1.7 million of taxpayer money to run your campaign. And let's remember, I started a company from scratch with all my wife's savings, and we built a wonderful company. And you can go to factsforflorida.com and get the real facts, not what my opponent keeps saying.
That's your website, by the way. It's not a public website. That's his website he's referring to, and it's just as biased as you are tonight, Mr. Scott.
This is another important one that you both have to deal with, too. A lot of people have been emailing us about things that they want us to ask you, and folks are pretty tuned into your campaign, in fact, and the issues. Look at this one right here. I am for all the people coming to America, but since there are about 1 million illegals in Florida, where do you stand on amnesty and how to deal with them? That's from Robert Joseph of Tampa. Robert, thank you for the email. Mr. McCollum, how about you?
Well, I'm very much opposed to amnesty. Amnesty is the idea of putting those who are illegal here and here just to get a job and working here on the path to citizenship. I'm the one who offered a motion way back in 1986 to strike amnesty from the immigration law that ultimately passed, that said that we will now have a law that says it's illegal for an employer to knowingly hire an illegal. We should be enforcing that law. We should be enforcing our borders. That's what President Obama hasn't done. And that's why I do support the Arizona immigration law, despite all the ads that Rick Scott's been running. He misstates my position completely. I am defending that law. I think we should make it that way. In your ad, Rick, you say that as the next governor of Florida, you're going to pass a law that allows police when they make an arrest, to be able to find out if somebody's been here illegally. That shows that ignorance of Florida law. Currently, police officers in this state have that right already. What Arizona has is a mandate that says when you're stopped, detained, or arrested, police officers shall check to see if you're legal or illegal. I favor that law for Florida. I favor the Arizona immigration law. Now, did I support it the first week it was out there? No, because it had the possibility of racial profiling. 1 week later, Arizona amended that law, and I strongly supported it since then. As I said, I'm in court defending it today. I think you're disingenuous. You've been putting up a lot of misleading ads. You spent millions of dollars to tell people something about me that simply isn't true.
Mr. Scott, what about that? What about using two? And he's correct about that. He made his statement before the law was amended, and yet you've been running that ad that is post-amendment. So it's actually...
No, it's not. He said it afterwards.
No?
So here are the facts. I'm against amnesty. We have over 700,000 illegal immigrants in the state. We have got to do everything we can to make sure that we take care of the people that are here legally. Now, we need to make sure we don't provide amnesty. We make sure the federal government secures our borders, and we need to make sure we pass the Arizona bill here in Florida. My opponent first said it was far out. Then he said that's a good law for Arizona, but not for Florida. Then he finally came around and said he's for the Arizona law. So he pandered to different people depending on the day. So I've been very consistent in my belief. I also believe that employers need to use E-Verify. It's a free service, so they know whether they're hiring legal or illegal immigrants or residents.
Can I respond just briefly? First of all, on the Arizona law issue, let's put that one to rest. I said it wasn't necessary, and you took that out of context, and that's when you blasted out this. But it wasn't necessary for police officers in this state to be able to make arrests. They could do that without that law. But it is necessary in the sense it'd be good to have here, and I favor it and I support it once it was amended. The second thing about E-Verify, I was at a Tea Party rally one night. I was on a Wednesday or Thursday. I openly advocated the E-Verify system. I've supported mandating it at the federal level. I've actually introduced it now in the cabinet, and we have required that E-Verify be used by those who are agencies of the state government. But you came out the next day after I said it and issued a press statement saying that you now support it, and tonight you're claiming it again, just as you've done with a lot of my plans. We published since April a series of 100 pages of policy papers. Most of what you put out has been imitating me, taking my stuff, plagiarizing it. I'm proud of that. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But that's what you've done for your 777 plan, Rick, and I know it, and I think the taxpayers are going to look at it too and know it.
So why did it take you 30 years to do it then, Bill? You've been around for 30 years. Why did it take so long to do some of these things?
Everything you've got is trying to mask stuff. So I've been in office a long time, and that's your whole excuse. You should be elected because you're an outsider. The truth is, I know what I'm doing. You don't know what you're doing, and you don't know about what you're talking about.
We'll give you 30 seconds, please.
Well, you know, if you look what we've done, we put out a very specific plan that's going to create 700,000 jobs over the next 7 years. And it's 7 steps. Hopefully many of you have received our brochure. And it's going to drive down the cost of state government. I've driven costs down. I mean, you can attack me all you want about, you know, how well we did at Columbia, but everybody knows I control costs, and that's why healthcare costs went down over that 9-year period. We're going to drive the cost of government down. We're going to grow jobs. I'm going to make sure I'm the chief economic development officer for the state. I've done it before.
Time. Now, Mr. McCollum, Rick Scott here said that you were hypocritical about immigration because when you left Congress and became a lobbyist before you were elected Attorney General, that you did some consulting work for clients that help provide mortgages for illegal immigrants. You want to talk about that?
Well, I did consult once for one mortgage broker concern with regard to one issue in Washington. But I will tell you what I've done since I've been Attorney General, which I think is far more relevant to this. I sued Countrywide, which was the largest producer of mortgages in this state that were putting people into homes that had no business being put into those homes. We got a very large settlement, multi-million dollars, against Bank of America after they took over Countrywide. We returned millions of dollars to taxpayers in Florida who were affected by this. We were able to give assistance to those who were undergoing foreclosures. We were able to give legal aid money out of that settlement. And we still have the president of that company in lawsuit right now. We hope to get a litigation settled against him one of these days, but I'd like to make sure he never does business in our state. I'm really proud of how my team's gone after mortgage fraud in this state, both in civil suits for unfair and deceptive trade practices, in closing down those companies, and in the case of Mr. Shepard and the statewide prosecutor, oftentimes prosecuting criminally those who've done those sorts of things. So yes, I represented one company on one issue one time, and I did nothing wrong in doing that, but I have done an awful lot of things for taxpayers